Are you an investigative professional? Did you know you can find the best private investigator resources using investigatorstoolbox.com? This resource community was built exclusively for licensed investigators and investigative professionals. You can network directly with members, educate yourself through free webinars and blogs, and even create your own customizable research library. Membership starts for as little as 49 cents a day. Download the Investigators Toolbox app or visit our webpage at www.investigators-toolbox.com.
Are you an investigative professional with an international problem you can't solve? Conflict International has the knowledge and relationships to jump in for you. We compensate investigators for referring cases to our office. Contact us today for details. Conflict International uses insight, intelligence, investigation, risk management, and strategic solutions to solve problems troubling individuals and companies of all kinds, anywhere around the world. Whether you're planning to hire a person to a position of trust, carry out due diligence on a company, trace hidden assets, or require skilled boots on the ground, Conflict International investigators can seamlessly pursue a case across borders, offering a truly global solution. Find out about our extensive range of services at conflictinternational.com. Conflict International, global reach, international knowledge. Welcome to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. Education expert Rory McMahon joins us today to talk about some new education opportunities available for investigators. You've heard his business, Investigator Education Consultants, advertise on many of our episodes. If you've seen Rory teach at a conference or if you've taken any of his classes, you know his passion. Make sure you check out one of his cool offers during our break. Please welcome Rory McMahon and your host, private investigator Matt Spaier.
And welcome everyone to this week's episode of PI Perspective. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Every now and then I like to have sponsors on the program just to give us updates and highlight what they're up to and what they're doing. And when they have special announcements and things like that. Our next guest is somebody who's been a huge supporter of this program, and I really appreciate his passion for training in the industry and how he really wants to make sure people know what they're doing. So I'm going to welcome Rory McMahon to the program. Rory, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Great to see you again, Matt.
Yeah, great to have you back on, man. I appreciate it. So you are the Investigator Education Consultants. Folks who listen to the program have heard your ads over the time. And again, I just want to thank you for the ongoing support. It really means the world to me. And I think what you're doing is a really great thing.
Well, you're very welcome, and certainly deservedly so. You're a man receiving many accolades lately, so it's good to be on a winning team.
Well, I don't know about that, but thank you. I'll take the win if you'll give it. So education is your passion. And the last time we had you on, God, it was probably maybe a year and a half ago. You were in the process of updating your material and moving your education courses online.
Right.
COVID hit. Universities were closed. There was no way to do that in-person training, and you made that pivot and shift. So what have you been up to since the last time we were chatting?
Okay, it's interesting that we're having this conversation now. I was just thinking in the last week how I have basically come 360 degrees. I was licensed as a private investigator in Florida in October of 1990. And in addition to working as a private investigator, I was also teaching part-time at a private junior college in Fort Lauderdale. And the courses that I was teaching were investigative classes. They were 8 investigative classes.
Right. And
at the end of the 40-week session, the student received a certificate in professional investigation.
Okay.
Fast forward 2 years, 1992, the college received accreditation and became a junior college and offered an associate's degree with a major in private investigation. And at that time, I became the chair of the PI department.
Right.
So here we are, 30 years later, and I am about to roll out a certificate in professional investigation program, which is the result of my online work that in my website that I created. So for the last year and a half, I've been offering classes, but I've now finished the package and will be rolling out, hopefully by the end of the summer, this certificate program. Mm-hmm. And as you pointed out, so since then, since 1990, when I got into this business, I noted that there was a lack of training for people that want to get into, the investigative field.
Right.
And the investigative field is much larger than just private investigators. I mean, that's a small fraction of the amount of jobs that are out there for investigators.
Sure.
I mean, in every facet of life and corporations and even government, they have investigative components. So, this is one area where the industry, the educational community has not, followed through and provided the opportunities, that this field requires.
Yeah,
and
we are we're a very
um,
litigious society. People like to
right,
like to litigate, and without investigation, there is no litigation, right?
Exactly.
That's F. Lee Bailey. I'm stealing that from him. That was a good
Exactly.
one. Rest in peace, F. Lee.
And what is available is not getting the job done. I mean, for 2 years, I was studying at CW Post College in Queens to get a master's in criminal justice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I was hired by the feds and no longer received the LEAP funds, so that I couldn't afford to complete it.
Yeah.
But it certainly was not adequate to address the needs of the private investigative community. I actually sat down with the chair of the criminal justice program at Boston University back in 2004. And said, why is this, whole niche like totally excluded from consideration?
So here's the thing.
Have an answer.
So I graduated from John Jay College
Right.
In 1995, and even like when I was in high school and trying to figure out like what I want to do with my life, like my guidance counselor actually asked me June of my senior year, "Are you going to college?" And I was like, "Yeah, no thanks to you, man." Like I figured it out, right?
Right.
So for me, I always was interested in history, right? That was something I gravitated to. So I knew I wanted to do something related to that. Like the science wasn't for me, math wasn't for me, English wasn't for me. Okay, well, what works for me? So I was drawn towards criminal justice. I always thought it was neat, right? And then you have this fantasy of, okay, I'm going to go work for the federal government, right?
Right.
Or I'm going to go into law enforcement, all that. So I got into John Jay College and I got my degree, and I actually got very serious in college in my studies. My grades really went up. I went from being like an average student to graduating with a 4.0 my last semester, right?
Wow.
But yeah. I just the last semester. I want to be very clear about that. So here I was, I graduated, I had this degree, and there was nobody really giving me guidance. I did some internships. I was supposed to go work for the Department of Investigation in New York City, which is like the internal affairs for everything but NYPD. I had a job offer lined up with him. It was good to go. And then Rudy Giuliani gets elected, and I actually worked to help him get elected. I was like, handing things out and doing whatever. And he says, city hiring freeze, no city jobs for 3 years. Wow. And I'm like, thanks, Rudy. I'm screwed. So just facing that, like now I have, what are my options, right? So the city was not an option. Law enforcement in general really wasn't an option because it was so super competitive at that particular time. And they were giving preferences to people that had relationships, like, oh, my uncle's on this force or whatever. So like I was taking tests, scoring in the high 90s or mid to high 90s, and I still wasn't even getting job interviews because it was so super competitive. And right. I ended up working for a retail investigation company, doing reference checking and starting, and then field investigation, mystery shopping, things like that. And that was the beginning of my journey to where I got here today. But there wasn't any extra training or anything going on, or even, in New York, the way it works is, you have to work for somebody right. for 3 years before they even allow you to take the test, or you have to be retired law enforcement. So it's kind of like a quagmire, right? You
Right.
want to do
Exactly.
something, you can't do it because you don't have the experience and nobody's going to hire you. Like it was
Right.
very crazy. So, we were talking like 1995, 96, that was the environment and stuff. And there really wasn't programs like what you're doing and in criminal justice. They just like, okay, that's where cops go. They go to school there, when they do the morning shift, they go to school at night, or they do the
To
night
get
shift, they go to school
promotion
in the
within
morning.
the
Right.
department, but they've already got the experience. They're already on the job. There's nothing that they would learn in the criminal justice program that
Right.
will help them be a better cop.
Right. So that was like the way the culture was at that particular point, right? There was no continuing education essentially. And even in New York, like we're not required to do continuing education. Once you get your license, you're good. As long as you get the money to pay for it, you're fine. Right.
Right.
So, it's so great that you're doing stuff like this and that shift, in the industry of saying, okay, there's so many people that are coming off of law enforcement or they're coming out of school and it's like, now what?
Right.
What are we going to do?
Or the military. I mean,
military, right? No,
to the colleges that I was working on to create programs, both in New Jersey. The first one was Bergen Community College,
Mhm.
And then the second one was Brookdale.
Yeah.
And they had a focus of the guys coming out of the military, who didn't know what they wanted to do,
Right.
but we're looking for options. And this could be an option where the in-school program was 3 months. You start the program, 3 months later you get a certificate, and you can now get an entry-level job in the investigative field, whether it be a private investigator or one of these other jobs that are in the field. So they were very attracted to that. The bad news for me was that it came out during COVID.
Right.
So not a lot of people were worrying about what am I going to do for a living. They were worried about grinding out their existence for a year and a half, being locked in their homes.
Right. Not
So
stressing
yeah,
their spouse.
typical of me. I may have been born on 7/11, but I don't have the best luck in the world.
Yeah, it's all right.
So that's why I decided that I need to create it online.
Yeah.
But go back to 1990.
All that content, man, that's impressive.
Right.
Yeah.
I just come from federal law enforcement. I knew how to do background checks. I knew how to do interviewing. I knew how to do criminal investigations. But all of these other areas knew nothing about. And so I'm teaching these classes, and the guy that hired me was a PI. I mean, he'd get in there. I mean, we were doing 16 hours a week of training, 4 hours at a clip.
Wow.
And I mean, you can't do content. I mean, you got to be a storyteller. You got to be a comedian. I mean, to keep their attention.
Yeah.
So, he could fill in the gaps with stories. I didn't have any stories. And I'm trying to find material because the material he gave me, was like the size of this boulder. I went through that in week one. And ever since then, I'm looking around. Certainly there's a lot more material and books are available, but, not enough. And there certainly needs to be that community, that educational community that people can go to. And I'm sure you get calls. I get for 30 years. I've been getting calls from people. How do I get in this? I know I want to be a PI. How do I get? I'm stuck in this situation. They won't hire me because I don't have experience, and I can't get experience. So and there's no schools. So what do I do? So
and the cool part about it is like LinkedIn and these other like social media platforms like gives these people access to you. Because I do get messages all the time, especially on LinkedIn. Like, hey, like I love the show. I appreciate it. I really want to get into this. How would you recommend? All the time. And it's great because I love being able to. I'm a bridge guy. I like to bridge people together, do connections, right? So
givers get the network I belong to. That's what they used to say.
Yeah, and it's good stuff. And before there was all that, before there's this technology, we had to depend on our state associations or national associations going to seminars, conferences, putting in, the time to do that, which is still very, very necessary. I mean, Heck, that's how I met you, right? I went to Osmosis down in Orlando, 2019, and hey, here's a guy talking for an hour and a half, and
But it's very necessary. But even like there's 9,000 investigators in the state of Florida alone.
Wow.
And yet, I was actively involved in the statewide association. I was running training conferences for years.
Yeah.
And we were lucky if we could get 150 people. That's not even 10% of the.
That is another quandary in our field, right? So a lot of investigators are sole practitioners, and they got to work to eat, and for them to take off the time to do that is difficult for them. They can't justify it. All right, if I'm going to spend 2 or 3 days at this conference, that's 2 or 3 days that I'm not making money, right? So not only am I paying to go to the conference, I'm losing money. I'm not billing. So here's the genius.
As you and I know, that's a false conception.
Right.
Two things happen when you go to conferences. Number one, you learn how to do cases that you don't already know how to do, or at least to improve your business. And number two, you network. I mean, Florida is a big state. I met Bert Hodge up in Tallahassee. So am I going to drive up to Tallahassee to work a case? Hell no. I'm going to call Bert Hodge, and and hopefully Bert's going to call me if he's got something in Fort Lauderdale. He's not, getting in his truck and driving down to Fort Lauderdale, a 6-hour drive. You work smarter, not harder. So exactly. It has more than paid back, what I've spent in time and money by
the other thing
that I've made and what I've learned.
Yeah. The other thing I want to mention is, by you migrating your training online, it kind of defeats that argument too, that I don't have the time to set aside to do this, because, you consume, when you consume and you get the material done, you get the certificate, right? And it's going to make you better. Let's be real about this, right? If you make the effort to invest in your skill set and get better at what you're doing, you will see more income, period.
Right. Absolutely. And now with the online thing, and I wasn't the only one that was working on online training during the pandemic, but now I don't have to spend the money to go for a hotel, and I can do it in the comfort of my own living room, or my office, or whatever it is.
Just no cat filters. Cat filters.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's good. So let's jump out for a break here, and when we come back, we'll keep talking about this topic and kind of drill it down a little bit harder. So everybody sit tight, and we will be right back.
The summer's here, and that means it's time to bundle discounts with the Investigator Education Consultants. Bundles are available on the fundamentals of the profession, gumshoe talent, putting it all together, hard-time crime, and pocketbook crime. If you purchase any of these combinations, you'll receive a 10% discount by using the code BUNDLE, BUNDLE. Visit the website at investigationeducation.com. That's investigationeducation.com.
You guys have been hearing for a long time about how much I love Crosstracks, but now you're going to hear from somebody else. So we got George Gerges here. George is a member and a user of Crosstracks. George, tell me real quickly what you love about Crosstracks.
The simplicity of using it and the ability to customize everything that you could do with Crosstracks is awesome. It actually allowed me to take the way that I do my business and implement it into their system. And not only am I able to manage 10 or 15 cases, I'm able to manage 50 to 100 cases with the same effort.
Fantastic. So Crosstracks, the case management system, they are SOC 2 certified. Basically, that's an encryption, really an upgrade. They're the only ones out there that are doing it. So please support this great sponsor that supports our show. Check them out. The links are in the show notes. Crosstracks, if you're an investigator, you should be using them today.
Looking for an insurance agent that puts you first? Every PI business is different. That's why OREP Insurance can shop multiple markets to ensure you get the best coverage to meet your unique business needs. OREP's model is business by the golden rule, and for over 20 years, they've built their business by putting their clients first. So come enjoy a fast online application and same-day certificates of insurance at orep.org. OREP has coverage for armed investigators, executive protection, and even has a separate policy for security firms. The application takes less than 5 minutes, so visit orep.org today. orep.org. Have you heard that the National Association of Legal Investigators will be having its next live conference this month? It's not too late to register. Join the best legal investigators as they meet in Louisville, Kentucky from June 22nd until June 24th. Visit Churchill Downs or sample some bourbon. You don't want to miss this great event. Learn more at nally.com. Check out the latest issue of PI Magazine available online or via hard copy. Just visit pimagazine.com.
And welcome back to PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Today we're doing a sponsor spotlight with the Investigator Education Consultants. We've got Rory McMahon here. Rory, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man. I know this is a labor of love for you, this whole education thing, and it's so
Absolutely
great that you're one of the industry leaders in doing this and just having the passion for it. So, before we took a break, we were talking about the benefits of having an online program and being able to get your education without actually sitting in a classroom and meeting those requirements. And it's such a game changer. The way technology has helped everybody kind of do what we need to do. It's not Chinatown with Jack Nicholson anymore, right? Nobody's getting black eyes, I hope, right? Or broken noses,
sliced up noses, right?
Yeah. It's a whole new world, right?
Right.
That's good stuff. So, one of the other things with your program that I think is so cool is that it's not just you. You have other investigators that help lecture and do training and things like that. So tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, I started out with myself, obviously, and I basically put together 5 classes, Foundations of Investigation, which is basically an overview of the types of cases that investigators work. The second one was my passion, criminal investigation, criminal defense investigation. Then fraud investigation, I'm a CFB, so it's another area, that I consider in my wheelhouse. And then legal investigation, as a legal investigator, I do both civil and criminal. So that was another area of major interest for me. And then, of course, the bread and butter for all investigations, background investigations. So those are the 5 major areas that I cover that are, I consider, not necessarily, things that most investigators cover, but at least it gives them a background on what those investigations are all about. And in addition to, the training material, I also, give examples of cases that I work.
Right.
And, not only is it lecture driven, so you're seeing me drone on for, hours at a time on these various topics. But I also provide the student, subscriber, whatever you want to call them, with a copy of the books that I've written. The latest being Guide to Professional Investigations, and also a PDF of the PowerPoint presenting my material. Yeah. So they actually have a copy of my book, which, the first professional practical handbook for professional investigators we're selling for $100 by CRC Press on Amazon and other areas. So I basically consolidated that, made it a PDF so that people can download it. Right. So, in addition,
God bless you.
So in addition to the lecture material, they're getting the PDF with the PowerPoints, and the book. Right. Same thing with the fraud book. I also wrote a fraud book. I just updated it in 2020, and students that sign up for that get a copy of that book, get the PDF, get the lectures.
Right.
So then I said, enough of me. Let's move on to somebody younger and better looking. So I had met Tom Bailey. I am a good friend of the owner of the agency that he worked for, Diane Cowan.
Mhm.
you know, from
I know
now.
both of them. They're great people. Yeah.
So her agency, Confidential Investigative Services, or CIS, is one of the premier, legal investigative agencies in Pennsylvania. They're located in Philly.
Yeah.
So Tom graciously agreed to, teach the classes for me. And the 4 that he teaches are skip tracing, ethics, interviewing, and report writing.
Okay.
So, a different perspective, a whole different approach, that he uses, and a much, newer version of, events than from me.
Right.
So that was, exactly what I was looking for, and he did a great job. For some reason, I was having a problem getting somebody to do the surveillance component. I've now solved that. I reached out to my guy that's been doing my surveillances for 10 years. So he is, as we speak, working on that.
Great.
And I hope to have that ready by the end of the summer.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing with the surveillance guys. Like those are the guys that are literally out in the cars, like doing stuff. So getting them to sit down and do something, I was like, I'm not surprised that you say that.
Right.
It's just a lifestyle. That's how they are. That's what they do. It's their bread and butter. Like I totally get it. I want to go back real quick just to hammer down a little bit or drive in on the background searches. Like you had said, the bread and butter and all that. What would you say, what constitutes a good background search as far as due diligence goes, in your opinion?
Okay, well, first I start with, the databases. So, and most people, think the databases are, the beginning and the end of the search. And as you and I know, they're just the beginning.
Yeah.
The information that's contained in what's provided by the databases is sometimes 100% factual, sometimes not, but you need to document it. I am not sending, a report that's generated by a database agency to my client saying, this is what the facts are, involving this person.
Never send the report, people.
So I am going to document the information that's provided.
Yeah.
Criminal history, I in Florida, thank God we live in a state that, public records are, there's plenty of them and they are publicly available. So I'm going to document, they say he's got 3 felony arrests in Broward County. I'm going online in Broward County and documenting that. So, but I mean, every investigation starts with me doing a background check, whether it's on persons that I'm going to be interviewing. I do background checks on my clients. Believe it or not, sometimes your clients lie to you. I want to know, if they're telling me the truth. I certainly don't want to go out and start doing work and providing information to a guy who's going to start stalking or, who's going to use the information, in some nefarious fashion. So
that's a liability issue too.
Exactly.
You got to be careful.
So yeah, I mean, you're doing a domestic case, and you find out that the guy's got a restraining order against him, and or a missing person. The son or daughter ran away. Well, they ran away because they were being accused by the father or the mother, whoever it is. So yeah, you don't want to be hired to find them so that they can, go out there and continue to do that.
Yeah.
So it's an essential component of each and every investigation. I mean, obviously, criminal and civil cases, before you talk to witnesses, first you got to find them, and you got to know something about their background so that you can conduct a thorough interview. Yeah.
And another reason why the training is so important is that rules and regulations are constantly changing, right? So, we have this whole data privacy specter hanging on our shoulders here, where, it may end up being something that's very similar to the European, GDPR regulations. And, it could really handcuff us as to our accessibility to information. It's important why, NCISS, associations like that are so important to have that watchdog. But that could affect, our ability to make a living,
Right.
which, you got to stay on top of it and know what you can do and can't do. And you want to make
I'll
sure
give
when
you
the
a prime
music stops,
example.
you have a
In
chair.
Florida, I think it was around the same time that the state association Valley was being founded. The state legislature decided that private investigators would be a good industry to require sales tax from.
Oh yeah, we got that in New York.
I mean, seriously? Well, lawyers and accountants don't pay sales tax for their services. Why private investigators? So, I mean, so 7% of my investigation goes to the state of Florida for sales tax.
Don't worry, it's 8 3/4 here in New York.
So, but had we had the association, which is in place now, which monitors all the so to keep the membership apprised as to what's going on, so that we can contact our representatives and say, no, this is not a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the way I approach that is, give Caesar what he's due, right? I got to collect it. I'm just a middleman,
Right.
Don't complain to me about it.
But at least give me something for my money. When you have 9,000 investigators and you have a lot of people that are out there that are not licensed and they're not doing anything about it, despite the fact that you're telling them that Matt Spaier is out there working as an investigator without a license, that's when it hurts.
Oh yeah, when they don't enforce it. Yeah, we did that too in New York too. So we, our state association, we were lobbying for the longest time to have a felony. Like I think a
Right.
was it a B class felony? I think we were going for operating as a private investigator unlicensed. We got it done, but not felony. We ended up having to settle for misdemeanor, but we still got something on the books.
Right.
Now the question is whether or not they enforce it.
Right.
Like
another question, right?
They'll take the money you pay for your license, right? $500 every 2 years, and thank you. But the enforcement's a whole nother issue for another day. But these are like trends and things to stay on top of, right? Technology trends. It's why the education that you offer is so important, and the fact that you're having these folks that are actually doing it, coming in and teaching about and talking about it, because they're living the life. Like they're giving the insight of here's how you do it. Here's a story of a situation I got into. This is how I solved it, or this is how this was resolved. Or it didn't work out the way that it was supposed to work out. And guess what? That happens.
Exactly.
I have a researcher in-house that works for me, and she's amazing, but she gets so frustrated when she doesn't solve something. She doesn't find an answer. And I'm trying to explain to her, it's almost like baseball, it's like 1/3 of the time, if you get something, you're pretty good, like you got to understand it's not the result that's important. It's the due diligence. How did you get there is more important than the end result. Just being able to retrace your steps.
And ultimately the clients are paying us to find information, and I don't promise them that I'm going to find the exact, result that they're looking for. I promise you that I'm going to work as hard as I can to uncover every stone, to try and get there.
Yeah.
And, after 30 years, I can pretty much tell you what I can and can't accomplish, as long as the objectives are realistic.
Yeah.
What I do have a problem with is, the client trying to tell me, how I should go conduct the investigation. I'm like, let's see, who's the licensed investigator here? Who's the guy with the 30 years of experience?
Yeah. The fun part is when they hire you to do something, and then they continue to like do stuff in there and start meddling and start tainting witnesses. You got to talk to somebody like, oh yeah, somebody was already here and was harassing me.
Or how about the wife that tells her husband that she hired investigators, following them around? I'm like, no, that's not a really good idea to do that.
The guy in that gray van over there, guess who he is? I hired him to follow you around. Next thing
don't confront him about what I tell you until after I tell you we're done with the investigation.
Next thing you know, the guy's knocking on your window in the morning and giving you a cup of coffee.
Right. Yeah, not a good idea.
Just watch for the banana in the tailpipe. That's all. So, oh man, it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy to see all that stuff. But it is important though for us to like stay on top of this stuff and just making sure, and having those relationships is important too. We had talked about that earlier, going to the conferences and getting your money's worth out of it. At the end of the day, what it really comes down to is you can't get a degree or come off of your prior job or whatever, and expect that you're going to get something without investing in yourself. Right. So there has to be that commitment. Like if you're serious about doing this work, and it's a good livelihood if you make the investment in learning how to do it, right?
It's the greatest job that I've ever had. I can't even imagine myself doing something else. Of course, working for myself, but it's easy to like or not like.
Right.
But
we're fun at cocktail parties.
Yeah, really fun. But again, getting back to the with the surveillance class, that will be 10 classes that are part of phase one, which is there's a menu of 10 classes that you can opt to take one or multiple or whatever.
Right.
So phase two is actually going to be all 10 classes you sign up for at once. And at the end, once you've completed the 10 classes, first of all, you're going to be tested, because I want to make sure I'm not sending people out there that sat through 3 of my classes of me droning on, didn't take the rest, and then they're going to diminish my name by going out and saying I got the certificate. I took all of these classes and they don't know how to do, half of the assignments.
Right, that would be a problem.
So they will sign up for all 10 classes at the same time. Mm-hmm. There will be a midterm and a final. And for the surveillance class, there'll actually be assignments. They'll have to go out, conduct 3 surveillances of 2 hours, and then send the instructor video and report writing.
Right. Start stalking Rory. That's your assignment.
So that's pretty much, and at the end of that, so they get their certificate in professional investigation, and I'm going to help them find a job. Now in New Jersey, at the end of the rainbow, if they graduated from, one of the community colleges, I had already worked with, the statewide association up there, and they were very much looking forward to people that were trained. Again, another state where pretty much 100% of the people that are licensed investigators are ex-law enforcement. That's the only way you can get into the club.
Yeah.
So, you're very limited in terms of the experience of the person that you're hiring is an ex-cop. What do they know about conducting background investigations, working, insurance cases and doing, skip tracing and writing reports, and certainly ethics. A lot of them come out with a lot of questionable, habits. So they were anxiously awaiting, the opportunity. And plus the other thing is you hire them at the intern level. So instead of paying, the ex-cop the $40, $50, $60 an hour, that they're looking for, you pay somebody $10, $15 an hour because they're starting out. They know how to do the assignments because they learned how to do the assignments from our instructors, but they're going to start at a reduced rate and then work their way up. Yeah. And then hopefully, they're going to become an integral part of that agency and, find a career right there.
Yeah. And let me just chime in as far as a business owner and having employees, right? Right. It gives me great pleasure to pay somebody to do a certain thing that they're very good at. Right. Like as far as the compensation rate, like I don't have any qualms about that. Like I love paying my people to do what they do because they're good at it. And I'm a big believer in incentives and bonuses and all this other stuff that goes along with being an owner. Also understand that you do have to start somewhere, right? If you have no experience, got to get your foot in the door. You got to show what you can do. Right. But I know there are many business owners just like myself in this industry where it's so hard to find good people. And when you find somebody who's trained and knows what they're doing and hands off, because this is a hands-off business, that is one of the benefits of doing what we do. Absolutely. You don't have to go sit in an office every day. You've got your caseload and things you have to do, but you're not, for the most part, someone's not going to be like, where's your TPS report? You're supposed to have it there on Monday, right? That's not going to happen. Right. So, just making sure you're on top of it. Like I tell my guys and gals that work for me, it's like you're being a business owner without the hassle of owning a business, because
Exactly
you
right.
have the freedom to basically set your schedule and do what you need to do. So
Which is why a lot of the people here, especially the surveillance specialists, have their own agency, but they don't really, they work for other, like they're surveillance
a lot of
specialists.
surveillance.
They work for me and they work for 2 or 3 other guys.
Yeah.
So
Have
this
your
way,
insurance. That's all.
yeah, they don't want to be sitting at their desk doing, doing the marketing and doing the bookkeeping and doing the networking. They want to be in their car making money. So, and like you say, I pay my investigators top dollar because there are so many out there, so many agencies and everything else. I want the best and the brightest, and I want them to work for me, and I want them to prefer to work for me than some other guy that's paying them less money. And within 3 days of them sending me their invoice, they're getting paid, whether I got paid or not. They're going to get paid.
Yeah, that's good.
So, it's the little things that they appreciate that make them want to work for you more than, your competitors.
Yeah. And, a good relationship like that, it benefits everybody.
Right.
And to do something like that on a surveillance, which is usually a defense side, it's commendable because, knowing a business owner about the pay schedules for insurance, I mean, you're sitting on invoices for months. So the fact that you're paying folks right away, it's commendable because, they got to put food on their table. They got to provide.
Exactly right.
You're,
gas, which is very costly these days to fill up the car so they can do the surveillance. And no,
it's definitely true there. That's the nature of the game there. And the other thing too is you're partner with Investigators Toolbox, and you do offer discounts and benefits to the Toolbox membership for utilizing your classes. So if you are a member of that community, I encourage you to check out the discounts and benefits page. Go look for the Investigator Education Consultants. Hit the button, the activate button, if you're interested, and receive the
absolutely
discount. Yeah. So we all got to work together to help each other get better, and that's been a passion of mine. I mean, the whole Toolbox thing. If you know me, if you know why I started doing this show, is that you're pushing up the level of quality level in our industry, or just giving instruction. I get a real passion for people that are just getting out and looking to learn how to do this stuff, because that was me. I had those question marks, and nobody. I had one buddy of mine who was like kind of a mentor to me, is how it started, and it just ballooned into getting involved in my state association, national associations, and I have such a huge network. I get that all the time. How do you have all these people on your show? How do you where do you find your guests? I'm like, these are my friends. These are people I just know from, being 25 years and doing this stuff. Right.
No, that's the other benefit of the associations. You find people that think like you, and then, an issue comes up and you reach out and you say, hey, I just got this case. I got a funny feeling, you run it by them, and, or you got a case and you don't know how to go about, resolving it. And you get some tips from them. So everybody needs a friend to go to get some advice or give advice.
Well, yeah. I mean, and also understanding in this industry, you're only as good as your relationships, right? So, like, who I know, as far as like getting information, is much different than who Royce. So it's like we could be both working on the same case, and we might approach things in a different way based upon the relationships that we have. That's why, like, when I'm soliciting new law firms, trying to get business, we have an investigator already. Great. Are you happy with him? Yes, we're happy with him. I'm not trying to steal his work. But if there's something that he's having trouble with, a particular case, let me take a look at it. Maybe I can solve that problem for you. And my relationships are probably different than that investigator's relationship. So I may be able to get it done. Maybe my interview technique,
area of expertise. Some people are not comfortable dealing with fraud cases. And they'll refer that case to me, and I don't do surveillance, so I'm definitely one of my subcontractors, or something that you do, I'll farm it out to you.
I really love that about that industry, that about this industry is that there's so many different things that you can do as an investigator. And,
Right.
if you're looking to get in this field, if you're considering taking one of Rory's classes, like, understand you can't do everything. I'm going to
Exactly.
tell you that right now.
Right.
Pick
Right.
a few things that you want to specialize in that
Right.
you're good at. Don't just do one thing. Just do a couple things and really be known as that particular person that can deliver on those particular things, and you'll go far very quickly in this
Right.
business instead of trying to
And
do
that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to turn down the case. You just have to, you're not going to work it. You're going to,
Right.
or it depends on how busy I am or what's going on. So
never
I'll
turn down a
either,
case. Never say
I'll
no.
either
Just
handle
say,
it and then
Yeah.
sub it out to somebody else,
Yeah.
or, if I got enough, to keeping me busy, I'll just direct refer it right to the investigator that I know that works that area that can handle it.
Yeah, you never say no to work. You always say, okay, I'm going to speak to my expert, my consultant, my team. I'm going to brief my team about this, and I'll get back to you.
Right.
Right. And then you go and you look for the expert or your team or
Right.
whatever. And then
I have to do that in my surveillance cases. I have to see whether or not, my people are available to handle the assignment.
Yeah.
So find out as much information as I can, what they're looking for, how long, yada, yada.
Right.
And then I call my guys and say, you available to handle this assignment? It's going to take this many days, whatever.
Sure.
And then, work it from there.
Great. All right. I think we're going to wind down here, Rory. Thank you so much for coming on. It's always great chatting with you, man. You want to talk about legacy and people that really do things for this industry. I mean, you're right up there. Definitely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's great to be with you, Matt.
Yeah. And please go check out the website, the Investigator Education Consultants. There's a link in our in the show notes. And guys, he's a regular sponsor. If it's not today's show, it's another show. Please support our sponsors. Please consider doing this. If you are getting into the industry and you want to get the best out of it, consider taking these courses. Make the investment in yourself. And if you're an investigator already and you're an expert in a certain field, or you have this expertise and you feel like you want to maybe brush up on another category and maybe add that skill set to what you do, this is the place to do it. Go get the certification and add that to your toolbox of things that you do, right?
Exactly right.
So, Rory, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Matt. It's been great being with you, and enjoy the rest of your summer.
Yeah. And thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch everybody next week on the next show. Take care.
Thanks to Rory for coming on and giving us an update. Make sure you take advantage of his great discount offer. We'd also like to thank Crosstracks, Conflict International, Investigator Education Consultants, NALI, and OREP for sponsoring the show, so please support our great supporters. Have you thought about joining Investigators Toolbox? Now's the time to get on board and join the fastest growing digital community for investigative professionals. Just use code PIP201836 to save 10% on our membership. If you have a question or a comment about the show, email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com. You can also find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. We'd like your feedback to bring you the best shows possible. And we'll be back next week with a new show, so make sure you tune in and stay safe out there.